Hello and welcome to Parsis IAS. Let's take up today's news analysis, that is 1st December 2019. Our first article is with relate to polity and constitution. The article says that Uddhav wins trust with 169 A's. BJP MLAs walks out of assembly saying that procedural irregularities in swearing in. This is in news because Maharashtra Vikas Aghadi government led by Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray sailed through the floor tests in Maharashtra Assembly on Saturday. The event also got attention where opposition BJP walked out during the voting citing procedural irregularities. 169 MLAs of Shiv Sena, the NCP and Congress along with small parties and independents voted in favor of government in 288-member house. 4 MLAs abstained. At the same time, Mr. Thackeray, who is not a member of either Legislative Assembly nor the Council, did not vote. This trust vote is done as per the Supreme Court because Supreme Court last week advised to ensure open voting system in presence of a pro tem speaker. So this is referring to Supreme Court's order which has asked that floor test to be conducted via open voting and also broadcast live is required, and it should have to be facilitated by a pro tem speaker. Let's get into our next article of discussion. This article is precisely with regards to legislation or lawmaking. The article points out that Northeast to be shielded from citizenship law impact. New citizens will not be allowed to settle in the region. First, we'll try to understand why this is in news. Why in news? This is in news because Union Home Minister Amit Shah has assured civil societies and political representatives from the Northeast states that tribal areas in Assam, Meghalaya and Tripura and states protected by inner line permit or ILP system, that were Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram and Nagaland, would be shielded from the impact of proposed Citizenship Amendment Bill or CAB 2019. So, inner line permit or ILP is existing in 3 different states in Northeast, that is Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland and Mizoram. So, Minister has assured civil societies and political representatives from the northeastern states that these tribal areas and ILP permitted protected areas will be shielded from the impact of CAB. So, this exemption or how this shield will be done, this means that undocumented non-Muslims from Bangladesh, Pakistan and Afghanistan. So, undocumented Muslims from Bangladesh, Pakistan and Afghanistan will acquire Indian citizenship under the new law, will not be allowed to settle in these areas and states but can do it so in other parts of the country. At the same time, if the people who acquire citizenship as per this bill want to go to say Arunachal Pradesh or Meghalaya, they will require inner line permit. They can have Indian citizenship but cannot settle in these states or northeastern states, and they will still require the consent of the state governments. The required meeting also set about some other statements like a person can be a citizen in Bengal or Delhi but not on northeastern states for the purpose of voting, business or doing jobs. So they are hindered or prohibited from entering northeast or settling there for voting, business or doing jobs. And this bill will be having these safeguards. Citizens from other states require ILP or inner line permit to visit Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram and Nagaland as per the Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulations of 1873. People in Assam is of the fear that this new CAB bill will nullify the provisions of Assam Accord of 1985, which fixed March 24, 1971 as the cut-off date for deportation of illegal migrants irrespective of the religion. But the current proposed CAB have the provisions that to detect and deport all illegal migrants who entered after December 2014. Let's get into our next article of discussion. This article is with regards to science and technology. The article points out PSLV gearing up of its 50th flight. In nearly 3 decades, it has launched more than 45 Indian payloads. First, we'll try to understand why this is in news. Why in news? This is in news because ISRO or Indian Space Research Organization is preparing for the 50th flight of the Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle or PSLV. Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, popularly known as agency's workhorse. The liftoff of the PSLV C-48 mission is scheduled for December 11. So PSLV is also called ISRO's workhorse. Till now, there are 49 PSLV missions have been done or lifted from the Satish Dhawan Space Center in Sriharikota. They include initial 3 developmental flights designated PSLV D1, D2 and D3 and 46 operational flights. So total 49. So till now this 49, 1, 2, 3 and plus 3 plus 46, total 49 PSLVs were done till now, and December 11 of coming week 50th PSLV will be released from ISRO. This entire 49 count include 2 failed missions and PSLV variants such as PSLV XL and PSLV CA. Along with heftiest siblings of Geosynchronous Satellite Launch Vehicle, that is GSLV, Geosynchronous Launch Satellite Vehicle. This continues to remain in the mainstay of Indian space program. In a career spanning nearly 3 decades, PSLV has launched more than 45 Indian payloads, including Chandrayaan-1 and Mars Orbiter mission Mangalyaan spacecraft and 310 foreign satellites. C-37 mission has been distinction of placing 104 satellites in orbit. So for this historical remarkable launch of PSLV 50 or the 50th flight, ISRO will launch QL variant of PSLV, which employs 4 strap-on boosters. It is the second flight of PSLV QL, the first being the PSLV C-45 mission. It's PSLV that placed in orbit the satellites in the Indian Regional Navigation System or IRNSS constellations. The C-37 mission has the credit of placing a whopping 104 satellites in orbit. The 50th flight to have on board 10 satellites, including India's RISAT and 2BR1 and 9 small satellites from abroad. The main important takeaway from this discussion is that PSLV XL is used for Chandrayaan-1 and Mangalyaan missions. Let's get into our next article of discussion. This is regarding antibiotics. Antibiotic prescription rate high in private sector. India is considered to be one of the top users of antibiotics. First, let us understand what is an antibiotic or what is the usage called antibiotic means. Antibiotics are medicines that help stop infections caused by bacteria. So they help in stopping infections which are caused by bacteria. They do this by killing the bacteria or keeping them from copying themselves or reproducing or multiplying. The word antibiotic means against life. Any drug that kills germs in your body is technically an antibiotic, but most people use the term when they are talking about medicine that is meant to kill bacteria. So before scientists first discovered antibiotics in the 1920s, many people died from minor bacterial infections like strep throat, etc. Surgery was risky at that time too. But after antibiotics became available from 1940s, life expectancy increased, surgeries decreased, that got safer, and people could survive what used to be deadly infections. So antibiotics are nothing but they are medicines that help in infection spreading to make it slow or to reduce. They do this by killing the bacteria or by keeping them from copying themselves or reproducing, or they will stop the multiplication of bacteria in the body. Now we'll try to understand why this is in news. This is in news because private sector clocked high levels of antibiotic prescription rate. This is according to a new study by researchers at the Public Health Foundation of India. Highest rate was seen among children from 0 to 4 years. That is almost 636 out of 1000 children. And the lowest is among the group of 10 to 19 years, 280 out of 1000. So this is worrisome. 0 to 9 years or 0 to 4 years, infant stage, 637 or maximum usage of antibiotic among the infants. So there was a report which is published by PLOS. The report says that outpatient antibiotic prescription rate and pattern in the private sector in India. So according to this study, first ever estimate of outpatient antibiotic prescription rates and patterns in the private sector has been published. A problem which is related to antibiotic usage is known as antibacterial The problem is called antibacterial resistance or antimicrobial resistance. So India is considered to be one of the top users of antibiotics, and there is a growing problem of antimicrobial resistance associated with this, because over usage of antibiotics will lead to resistance to a certain bacterial infection or antimicrobial resistance. The study noted that per capita antibiotic consumption in the retail sector has increased by around 22% in the 5 years from 2012 to 2016 range. Therefore, we can summarize discussion in this topic saying that misuse of antibiotics and easy access fuels antimicrobial resistance or increases AMR, which is a growing concern worldwide and precisely in India. Let's get into our next article of discussion. This is regarding Transgender Persons Bill. The article points out, why are there objections to the Transgender Persons Bill? Does the bill address issues of gender and identity? Does it consider the appeals and concerns of the community? First, we'll try to understand why in news. This is in news because August 5, in Lok Sabha, the bill has been passed, that is Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Bill has been passed, and after a month its introduction in the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha also cleared on November 26 with the last minute move to refer it to select committee being defeated in a voice vote. The community has organized protests across the country urging changes to the bill, claiming that in the form in which central government has conceived it, it showed a poor understanding of gender and sexual identity. So whatever bill is placed and passed in both the houses now, it have a poor understanding of gender and sexual identity is being told. Actually, this bill is meant to the consequence of directions of Supreme Court of India in the National Services Authority, Legal Service Authority, that is NLSA versus Union of India. Because of that, this case, Supreme Court have directed to frame a bill like this, mandating the central and state governments to ensure legal recognition of all transgender persons and proactive measures instituted for their welfare. The community want the word transgender to be removed. So they would like to reject or rejecting transgender as the nomenclature. They suggest that they want other titles, something like gender identity, gender expression and sex characteristics protection of rights bill, and in definition sought to introduce distinction between transgenders and intersex persons upfront. Members of the community perceive transgender as different from intersex and were insistent that distinction to be made in the bill very clearly. So before getting into detailed discussion of this topic, first we'll try to understand what is the meaning transgender and intersex means. So transgender means they have different identity or gender identity than what was assigned to them at birth. So what is assigned to them at birth, they are different. Okay, when they grow up, that gender identity they are not able to show. While intersex means there was a problem in the biological characteristic, that is ambiguity in deciding what sex they belong to at birth, that they are called intersex. The act is progressive in one way because it have provisions allowing that self-perception of identity can be that means a person can decide himself or herself what identity or sex identity the person has. It mandates a certificate from the district magistrate declaring holder to be transgender. This goes against the principle of self-determination itself. Activists argue saying that there is no room for redress in case an appeal for such a certificate is rejected. One long pending demand has been to declare forced, unnecessary and non-consensual sex reassignment surgery legal or making it as legal. Now it is illegal, and to enforce punitive action for violations. The committee was set up in order to have a precise look at what is Tamil Nadu's experience, because Tamil Nadu, which has already set up a welfare board for transgender persons and include recommendations right from allowing a third gender in official forms to setting up special toilets and customizing health interventions. This is done in Tamil Nadu. The committee was overlooking the legislations or rules done in Tamil Nadu. In the year 2014, a private member bill called Rights of Transgenders Bill was introduced in Rajya Sabha by Tiruchi Siva, a member of parliament from Tamil Nadu itself, which looked at a range of entitlements of such persons, providing specifically for them in health, education sectors, skill development and employment opportunities and protection from abuse and torture. It was passed in Rajya Sabha that time. But in 2016, what has happened is that government has passed its own bill in Lok Sabha. and it was referred to standing committee which made a number of recommendations including defining the term persons with intersex variations, granting reservations for social and educationally backward classes, and recognition of civil rights including marriage, partnership, divorce and adoption. Now we know clearly that what is the difference between transgender and intersex. Transgender means the person by biologically decided in some other alignment, and after he or she is grown in certain age, they identify themselves to be in some other gender. That is called transgenders. Intersex means biologically there is a problem in deciding what sex they belong to. Earlier this year, again in Tamil Nadu, what has happened is that Madras High Court declared a ban on sex normalization surgeries on intersex children and infants, relying on a petition to National Human Rights Commission on the subject from Gopi Shankar, an intersex person and activist. Tamil Nadu government followed this up by issuing a government order banning such surgeries. So while we are understanding what's the way forward, or while we are making a summary for this discussion, we can understand that while the community is miffed that bill has become an act without any effort to make valid or relevant changes to its original composition, it worries about how implementation will address to the pressing needs of the community. It only hopes that National Council for Transgender Persons will allow for a more favorable implementation of the law and thus provides more elbow room for genuine representation of the community that the bill itself failed to accommodate. That's all for today. Hope this helps. Thank you.